Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, and thanks for taking a couple minutes out of your day and spending with me on this video, man. Much appreciated. And today I'm going to have a conversation of something that's really pertinent to me, because actually I'm filming this video the day before our final day of the Toyota series here on Lake Dardanelle. And tomorrow, I'm right on the bubble for making the championship. It's going to be a big high pressure day for me tomorrow. I've got to catch them. I've got to catch a decent limit of fish tomorrow if I'm going to make it. And so I thought, what better time to talk about how to deal with pressure, as far as just pressure, stressful situations when you're fishing. And, I know it's not that big of a deal if you're just a weekend fisherman, but if you guys out there, the guys out there that fish any tournaments on any level, I don't care if it's a weekend buddy tournament or a club tournament or a kayak tournament, if you have any type of competitive juice in your body, you're going to feel a little bit pressured or stressed at times in a tournament, based upon things that are happening. And that stress can take a lot of different forms. It can take form as far as, like, say for example, you're having a really bad day and you really need to catch them, and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you don't have a fish. Or say, for example, you got 4 fish in the live well and you got an hour left to fish and you need 1 more to get your limit. Or you're in position to win, or you're in position to make a championship. There's a countless number of stressful situations that we have as tournament anglers. And I'm sort of going to give you guys some tips on, what I've learned on how to deal with it over many, many years of dealing with this myself. So anyway, the first thing you have to do is this is all basically a mental game that you have to play with yourself, and it requires some mental discipline to do that, because when you're talking about stress and pressure, I mean, that is stuff that you put on yourself internally. Nobody makes you feel stressed, or nobody makes you feel pressured. I mean, there's a lot of external variables. Say for example, if you don't do well in the tournaments, you might lose a sponsor, or if you do well in the tournaments, you may get a sponsor. So there's some external variables, but ultimately you have a decision on how you react to those situations. So the first tip I want to give you guys is choose to not give negativity any energy. And any situation that you encounter on the water, I don't care how negative it seems, you have to be able to flip that around and turn it into a positive. Say for example, like what happened to me at Lake Dardanelle today. There was a lot of boats fishing the area that I was fishing. And instead of saying, well, man, this area is just getting hammered to death, I'm not going to catch any fish here, I started getting a few bites on a couple key baits that I knew probably a lot of people weren't using. And that gave me a tremendous amount of confidence. And I could tell myself mentally that's like, hey, it doesn't matter, if you fish behind somebody or not, you're still going to catch fish, because they're not doing what you're doing. They're not using this color bait or this profile of bait. So, and whatever, or for example, say the wind's supposed to blow 30 miles an hour, the day of your tournament, you need to, instead of just cussing the wind, you need to turn it around and say, yeah, the wind's going to blow 30 miles an hour and it's really going to activate these fish, and I'm going to catch a big bag. So get into the habit of turning everything that you have around yourself into a positive. And you can complain and gripe about it after the tournament, but when you're in that competition mode, you have to really do that. So the second thing out there is, like, you have to have the ability, when you put that throttle down in the morning and you take off from the takeoff and you're going to your first spot, you have to have that ability to mentally compartmentalize everything and put everything off to the side for the next 8 hours. If the dog has an appointment to the vet coming up, or if the mortgage is due this coming month and things are a little tight around the house, or you got one of your parents is sick or whatever, you have to have the ability to just say, hey, there's nothing that I can do about this stuff now. There's nothing that's going to benefit me by focusing on this now. The thing that is going to benefit everything around my life is if I give 100% focus to the job at hand for the next 8 hours. This is something that takes practice to do that. I mean, you can't fake it. You can't like just tell yourself without believing that. It's something that comes over years of practice of being able to put that aside. And I'm pretty good at doing that after doing it as many years as I have. Is like, you know, when that throttle goes down in the morning, there's something that shifts inside of my mind, and it doesn't matter how tough the fishing has been or whatever, I get into this tournament mode. I get my game mind in. So when you're dealing with pressure, say for example you got one of those situations where it's a high pressure tournament for you, a lot on the line, the first thing you have to do is you have to, every single cast that you make, you have to be present with that cast. Because if you're 100% focused on the cast, you don't have time to think about anything else. So one of the things that I like to do is that once I make my cast, it's like I visualize that bait coming past every piece of object that I'm working. Doesn't matter if it's a dock or if it's a grass or whatever. And I'm picturing that bait mentally going across the bottom or through the water column. And as I'm retrieving the bait, I'm expecting a strike. Every single cast, I'm expecting a strike. And I'm expecting and I'm playing this mental game in my mind, and I'm running through in my mind what it's going to feel like when I get this bite, what it's going to feel like for that bass to load up on a crankbait, or what it's going to feel like when I see that line jump in the air and a bass sucks in my jig. So I'm playing this every single cast. And if you do this, and if you're fully present in the moment of the cast, your mind doesn't have time to wander into the pressure areas. It doesn't have time to think about, you know, if you don't catch them, you're not going to make the championship. Or you don't have time to think about, you know, what's going on at home that you have to take care of. You're totally focused in the moment. And so basically what we're talking about here is mental discipline. You have to be disciplined, and you have to work at it, because it's not easy. That's why at the end of the day, it is mentally exhausting to do this all day long. You can imagine if you're fully in the moment every single cast all day long, how mentally exhausting that's going to be. And you don't ever want to get out there and just cast and feel like you're not catching something. You need to be in that moment all the time, and this is going to be one of the biggest things that takes pressure away from you. Another thing you can do on that is don't give it too much energy. It's like, don't take it too serious too. There's so many other things in life that are more important than bass fishing and tournament fishing. So you have to put things in perspective as far as that goes in there. Just another thing that goes along around it. And if you're having a tough day, this is another thing that comes in. If you're catching them, it's great. I mean, life's good, and you're not having anything problem if you're catching them. But say for example, it's noon and you don't have any fish in the boat, and you don't really know what to do, and you're frustrated. We've all been there. I've been there. Every single tournament angler's been there. When that happens, you have to make an adjustment, and you have to slow down. The best advice that I can give you to take the pressure off of you if your day's not going well is sit down on the bottom of the boat. Just sit down on the front deck of the boat, eat yourself a snack, drink some water, take some deep breaths, and just chill out for a minute or two. And think about what you think you need to be doing. Do you have to make a bait change? Do you have to make a color change? Or do you have to make an area change? And when you do this, try to feel what that decision feels like inside you. Does it feel like it's the right decision? If pulling up the trolling motor and running down the lake feels like the right thing to do, don't second guess that. The worst thing you can do is second guess yourself. Go with your first intuition all the time, whether it be a bait change or an area change. And once you do this is the thing that can turn around a slow day many times, a lot of times more than not. But the worst thing you can do on that, the thing that'll keep building pressure, is if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and it's not working. Sometimes there's bite windows, I agree. Sometimes, for example, they're just not biting in the morning, and they pick up and they start biting in the afternoon on the same water. So you have to be able to discern if it's a timing thing or if it's a matter of just changing focus completely. So anyway, that's just a few tips, guys, that'll really help you out. Like I said, it's so much of it is just mental. Practice the discipline required in order to compartmentalize issues in your life where you can completely focus on fishing. And when you're out there fishing, be present 100% on every single cast. That way your mind won't wander. That way you won't be stressed. You won't feel pressure, and you're just 100% fishing in the moment. And that's what the key, to that is, because, fishing is like life a lot of times. I mean, if you think about or live in the past, maybe, and say we'll relate this to fishing. If you think about things that you've had in the past, a lot of times that's a negative. It'll make you sad. If you think about the future, sometimes that will, create anxiety. Like if you need to weigh in at 3 o'clock and you don't have one at 1 o'clock. That's why it's so important to be completely, fully immersed in the moment and fish the moment, just like, Johnny Schultz's YouTube channel. There's so much wisdom behind that YouTube name. Fish the moment, man. That's what you have to do to take pressure off of yourself. So anyway, I hope that helps out, guys. Like I said, it's easy to talk about it, but it's actually one of the most difficult things to do. But it's just a matter of practicing, having some mental discipline, and you can at least take some of the anxiety level down to a little bit lower level on those stressful tournaments. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing good. And like I said, when you guys see this video tomorrow, I'll be out on the water, trying to reduce those stress levels and make that championship. So we'll talk to you later.